Hi everyone, it's Gia. Welcome to my channel. On this channel we talk about things like minimalism, frugal living, saving money, budgeting, things of that nature, and sometimes just random things that I feel like talking about. So today I want to talk about minimalism and the process of actually getting rid of our things, because decluttering, as fun as it can also be very challenging for a lot of people, and it does take practice. So as easy as it is to accumulate things, on the flip side of that, it can be very hard to let go of things. So in this video, I'd like to touch on 20 different tips that can help you say goodbye to your things and to let that process go a little bit easier. So this video is inspired by one of my favorite minimalist books called Goodbye Things by Fumio Sasaki. I've probably completely butchered that pronunciation, but it's got very helpful tips about how to minimize your space and how to get rid of your belongings, all those sort of things, and just declutter. So I've taken 20 points that he's made in his book, and I'd like to touch on those because they are very helpful. So all credit goes to Fumio Sasaki, if I'm saying it correctly. So these are the 20 tips. He had something like over 55 or something like that. But these are the 20 that I found the most useful. So these are the ones that I would like to touch on and to help you say goodbye to your things. Number one is get rid of it if you haven't used it in a year. So we often hang on to things thinking, I'm going to use this one day, there'll be a special occasion or an event that comes up, and you'll just be like, okay, now's the perfect time for it. But rarely does that actually happen, and oftentimes we'll just go with something completely different. Very rarely will hanging on to something make it useful. If you've not used it in a year or over a year, it might be time to let it go. And a very good way of implementing that is the old coat hanger method. A lot of you may be familiar with this, where basically you'll have the coat hangers all set in a certain position, so facing forward or facing backwards, and every time you use an item of clothing you flip it the other way around, so by the end of the year you can see what you're actually wearing versus what you haven't worn the entire year. It can be a very helpful method for actually seeing what you are wearing and what you are not. So the second tip is think about the things you want versus need. Oftentimes we'll just get stuff because it's a want. So we'll spend money, we'll spend time, and we'll get that belonging, that possession, but it rarely is a need. Sometimes it is, and then a lot of the times it actually isn't. So just, really consider what is a want versus a need in your life. Number 3, let go of the idea of someday. So that's kind of touching on the first point I made as well, where it's just hanging on to something for the sake of hanging on to it, just thinking, I'm going to use this one day. You know, our fantasy self often has this very elaborate life that we very rarely live in because it's our fantasy self. So in our head, this is what we're wearing, this is what we're doing, this is who we're interacting with, but in reality, it's usually a very different story. So hanging on to stuff for your fantasy self isn't always the best choice to make. Number 4, say goodbye to who you used to be. Now this one can be quite painful because it's basically, particularly for people who are nostalgic and very attached to certain time periods in their life, which a lot of us are, it can be very hard to let go of things from that time period, because we'll look at something, we'll wear something, and it will remind us of a certain event, a certain time, certain people. So this can create a lot of nostalgia, and hanging on to the past is something a lot of us do. But life goes on and time goes on, we often become different people and we live different lives. Just hanging on to it for the sake of it when it doesn't fit or it's no longer practical or useful for our lifestyles just doesn't really make much sense, because then we're just hoarding memories, really. Number 5, let go of the idea of getting your money's worth. Now this one hits me a little bit close to home. If I'll impulse buy something and I've just let it just sit in my cupboard and I've not worn it or used it, and I've spent a lot of money on it, I really hate letting that go, because I just think, oh, but I spent this much on it, this is expensive, this is like a good quality item, I can't let it go for the sake of it's just expensive, but I've not used it, I've not worn it, it's just been sitting there. So a very painful thing can be just letting that go. Just releasing that and going, you know what, I did pay this amount for it, I've not really used it, but this is a learning curve. This is a life lesson for me now, is to really consider what I'm actually wanting to spend my money on, and to really, really think things through before impulse buying, really. Let go of that idea of, I've spent this much on it, therefore I have to keep it around for the sake of it, because that is not a helpful mindset to be in. Number 6, if you lost this thing, would you go out and buy it again? This is a really interesting one, because anytime I'll look at something in my wardrobe, in my cupboard, whatever, and I'm just really thinking about it, about 90% of the things I don't think I would go and repurchase. It's like a lot of the things are filler items. If they went missing or got, burnt in a fire or something like that, would I desperately want to go out and repurchase it? Probably not. High chance I would actually forget it even existed. Think about, would you buy that again or would you not? Because that can really put into perspective what's actually important and what's just a filler item. Number 7, discarding memorabilia is not the same as discarding memories. And a lot of us can feel a sense of guilt around this, because we often feel, if I get rid of this item that my deceased relative gave me, then I'm a bad person and I should feel awful about doing this. But that's not the person. That's not the memory. That's a physical item that we're putting our emotions onto, but we'll still have those memories regardless, like the physical items there or not. And this can be a very personal, very hard subject, letting go of like very emotional, sentimental items, but it's not the memory. Yeah, to remind yourself of that can be very helpful and cathartic and healing even. Number 8, our homes are not museums. They don't need collections. And oftentimes we'll just collect things, we'll store things, we'll just hoard things basically. Yeah, for people who like to collect things, which a lot of people do, and I think that is fine. If you genuinely enjoy collecting something, it gives you a sense of satisfaction and enjoyment and pleasure, and it genuinely improves your life. I think that's fine. But our homes are not museums, and oftentimes, why would we want to crowd our homes with physical items that we then have to look after, clean? It takes up emotional and physical space. Number 9, what if you started from scratch? So that's quite a similar one that ties into, if you lost it, would you buy it again? But yeah, what if you started from scratch? What would be the baseline things that you would actually need in your life? Like, that can be a very helpful restarting mindset to have, where you're looking at something and you're going, yeah, okay, so if I'm on the baseline again and I'm starting from absolutely nothing, what would I actually need and want in my life? And that can be, a good point to go from. Number 10, 1 in, 1 out. I know a lot of you are probably very familiar with this, where it's basically you get one thing in, but then you have to discard something you already own. So this can stop things from compiling and just sort of just getting a little bit out of control, because this happens quite a lot, doesn't it? Where you'll just basically be going through your closet and you'll just notice, why did that suddenly, my clothes have all multiplied all of a sudden, and you're just going, how did that get there? And oftentimes it's because we're just accumulating and we're not discarding. So the 1 in, 1 out method can be very helpful in that regard. Number 11, don't buy it because it's cheap, and don't take it because it's free. And a lot of us, particularly us frugal-minded people, we love a good bargain. We love something that's free. We love something that's super cheap. And this can be actually very hard to retrain your brain out of, because who doesn't want something that's free? But really think about it. What are you actually compromising to take this thing into your home? Like, you are going to now have to look after this thing, you're going to have to clean this thing, you're going to have to make room for this thing. So it's not actually a free or a cheap item. It's actually going to take up mental bandwidth, emotional bandwidth. Like, it's all going to play on your time and your energy in some regard, even in small ways. Everything free has a hidden cost behind it, don't forget that. Number 12, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And this can be applied to so many facets of life, where you're not super excited to do it, and you're not just passionate, and it's not straight in the forefront of your mind. It's just hell yes, hell yes. You probably don't need it, honestly. If you have to and ah about it and go, I don't know. It's probably a no. If you know straight away it's a yes, then it's a definite yes. And if it's a no, it's a no. And if it's a probably a no. I don't know. I just really like that one because it is pretty accurate a lot of the time. Number 13. Fewer things does not mean less satisfaction. And I guess that's the whole principle of minimalism, isn't it? Where it's just like being content with what we have. It doesn't make us lesser than, it doesn't make us inferior. It's just a different way of life. It's a different way of viewing things. It's actually far more satisfying because the things that we do have, we value a lot more because we know what we have. We treasure them more, we look after them more because it's just a mind shift, a mindset shift. It's a far more satisfying way of life in my personal opinion. Number 14, find your unique uniform. This is a really fun one, but once you know what you actually like to wear, what you look good in, the fabrics and the fits and the cuts and the colours and all those things, you were going to find that getting dressed and getting ready every single day is so much easier because you've got your own unique style and you've got your own unique uniform that is uniquely you. And it just takes out so much decision fatigue as well when you know what you're going to be wearing. Like, I'm not like saying do a Steve Jobs and wear the same thing every single day if you don't want to, but to have something like more curated and just more precise and tailored can be so helpful. Just knowing what you like to wear, what you look good in, what fits well, you can cut your getting ready time in half so easily, and it's just, yeah, gets rid of so much decision fatigue, which a lot of us struggle with. Number 15, we find originality when we own less. And this is so true, because when we own less, we have to be a lot more creative with the things we do have, because we can't just go get this random thing. Well, we can do that, but it defeats the whole purpose. We find our originality when we own less, and we have to be creative with the things that we do have and make do with those. Number 16, minimalism is freedom. Once you don't have things tying you down, you can literally, assuming you've got some money to back you up too, you go where you want, you can do what you want because you haven't got to look after these things back at home. You know what I mean? It's like less things to think about, less things to have to worry about. It's just more of a sense of clarity and freedom, and you can just, I don't know, it's just a lightness to it. Number 17, question conventional ways you're expected to use things, which ties back into 15, I guess. You got something, see what else you can do with it. A lot of the times we'll just buy something else that's meant to do an intended purpose when we have something else that could just as well do the job, but we just hadn't thought about it like that because I guess we're just kind of preconditioned to get the thing that everyone else gets and then use it in that way, but I don't know. The creativity aspect is quite interesting. 18. Minimalism is not a competition. And this is the problem that does pop up with minimalism quite a bit, where it's like somebody owns 100 items of clothing, and then the next person's like, well, I own 50, and the other person's going, oh, I own 10, and it turns into this like pissing contest in a weird way, where it's like who can own the less amount of things, which I think is just as toxic as, yeah, the flip side of that, where it then just becomes, I think it becomes unhealthy at that point, where you start comparing yourself to others and going, well, I don't have 100 items, like I've got 250, like how do I get it down to 100, and how do I get down to 50, and this person's got 10, how do I be an ultra minimalist? And it's just, yeah, as soon as you start getting to that territory of minimalism, that's where it goes really toxic in my opinion, where you're just looking at the person next to you and going, oh no, like I need to get down to that number because this person has less and I want to be have less than this person does. So, and people are competitive, like, you know, I don't know, it is in our nature, but in this term it's just, nah, I don't think it's healthy, and it's not a good way to live, because then it becomes very anxiety driven, and that is not the point of minimalism at all. Number 19, borrow things and rent where you can. I love this so much. Like, I'm an avid reader. I own very few books physically, like, probably see on those candles, that is the extent of books that I own. I own 4 books, because I've culled quite a bit over the years, but I also go to the library every week and I'll get tons of books out then and read them throughout the weeks. And that's free. So I've got access to all this knowledge, all this information at my fingertips for free. I don't have to go out and buy it. I don't have to go out and spend $20 or $30 on a brand new book that I might read once and then it's going to collect dust in storage and then it just... No, make use of the services around you that are free. And there are quite a few, you just got to start looking for them. Number 20, as good as creativity is, don't get creative when you're trying to discard things. And this can be a problem because how often when we are decluttering do we look at something and go, I can imagine putting this pair of pants with this shirt or like with this jacket, or we start getting creative in that very moment where we're just like, I could put it with this. I probably won't, but I could do that. And that's when we start hanging on to things because we're going, well, I've now got an idea for this. Now I'm going to do this. 90% of the time, you're not actually going to do that thing. It's just the immediate response to chucking something out where you're suddenly going, well, wait, hang on. I actually can do something with this after all. It's like, high chance you probably won't. Just discard it. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So that's my take on it anyway. And that is 20 ways to say goodbye to your things. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it and you've gained some new insight or knowledge from this. And if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Really helps my channel if you like this sort of content. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!